Production possibilities without trade. The concept of production possibilities is introduced also in Econ 2105, where you probably saw something like this. A country produces good A and B, and the production possibilities frontier is called PPF. It's typically drawn this way to show what is called the law of increasing opportunity cost. As you produce more of good A along the PPF, then you give up, which is the opportunity cost of producing good A, more and more of good B. This is applied for goods that are unrelated in technology production. For example, you can argue that here it's pizza, or well, wheat, and on B is automobiles, let's say. So one requires less sophisticated technology than the other. But sometimes you may have, let's say, wheat here, and I don't know if they can be grown in the same pot of land, but let's assume that same land can be used to grow wheat or cotton. And the PPF is drawn like this in this case because the opportunity cost is about constant. Well, we're going to use this approach which is simpler, in this chapter here. Now let's look at this example. The United States can produce with 100 million workers all these combinations of two products, food and clothing. And the same for another country called Isodia. Obviously all this is hypothetical, that can produce all these different combinations of these two products. And the difference between for this point and this point, U1 and U2, notice in terms of food, it goes down by 120, while clothing increases by 60. And that repeats and repeats in every point, so it is a straight line. Same in here, the food drops by 40, clothing increases by 80, along the PPF, or the production possibilities frontier, which yields these two graphs here for United States, this one, and for Isodia, this other graph. The points U1, U2, U3, U4, U5, and U6 are the same points of production that are shown on the table here, combinations of food and clothing. Now, if you go back here, the United States with 100 million workers can produce 600 units of food. So that is 600 divided by 100, that gives you 6 units per worker. Whereas Isodians, if they specialize in producing only food, with 200 million workers, they can produce 200 million units of food. 200 divided by 200, that gives you yields one unit per worker. So the United States is more productive, if you notice, 6 per worker versus 1 per worker. Now, if the United States produces only clothing with the 100 million workers, they can produce 300 units, 300 millions, if you notice, 300 millions of units. So 300 divided by 100, that gives us 3, which is 3 units per worker. Whereas Isodians, when they produce only clothing, they can produce 400 with the 200 workers in millions both. So 400 divided by 200, that gives us 2, which is less productive also than the United States. So somebody would have argued, or could argue, that there's no point in trading here because the United States is more productive in the production of food and clothing. But the opportunity cost is different, as you may see from this graph, or you can also see it from the table. If you divide 600 by 300, that gives us the slope of this line, and that is 2. 2 units of food divided by 1 unit of clothing. 600 divided by 300 gives us 2. And you can get the same result if you calculate the difference between any 2 points, like between U3 and U4, between U3 and U5, you always get two. Two food per clothing. And so let me write this down here and erase this one. So the United States is two food per clothing, and Isodia 200 divided by 400, that is 1/2, or half a food for one clothing. Isodia, half one clothing. So you can see that the price of one clothing is two food in the United States, whereas in Azodia, one food exchanges for only 1/2 food. So therefore, Azodia has a competitive advantage in the production of clothing because it experiences a lower opportunity cost in the production of clothing. Conversely, you can say that the United States has an advantage, a competitive advantage in the production of food because this exchange rate, if you divide by 2 on both sides, you get one food, 1/2 clothing. And here, if you multiply by 2 on both sides, you get one food, 2 clothing. So the United States forego less or has a lower opportunity cost in the production of food, so the United States should specialize in such production.